Hey, it's Jared. In this video, we're going to take a look at this year's Galaxy lineup and help you decide which phone might be the best option for you. Now, from left to right, we've got the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, the Galaxy Z Flip 5, and the Galaxy Z Fold 5. A couple of them have cases on them, one of them does not. We're going to talk mainly about the practical uses of these different phones so that hopefully you can decide which one might be the best fit for you. We're going to start with the S23 Ultra on the left. The S23 Ultra is one of the first phones to come out this year from Samsung. It's their flagship phone for the year. It comes with all the best features, and there's a few different varieties of that phone. There's the S23, the S23 Plus, and the S23 Ultra. And basically it's small, medium, large, and there's also little other features there as well, with the Ultra being the phone that has the most memory options, the best cameras, the best processor, all of that stuff. Actually, I think the processors might be pretty close to the same, but I know that there's more memory and storage on the S23 Ultra than the other available phones. When it comes to the S23, you're gonna get relatively a similar experience regardless of which phone you get. You're just going with different screen sizes, slightly different resolutions, and also with different cameras. Then we move on over to the Flip 5. This is the phone that flips down the center and is the most compact phone really that you can get. And it's great because it has this large screen on the front that sometimes wakes up when you tap it. I mean, it does wake up when you tap it, but I feel like you got to tap it pretty hard. But I love the new design of the screen being a majority of the window here and being able to see a lot that's going on that screen and have these different widgets and all that good stuff too is a great feature. And even being able to open apps. That's kind of in beta, but you can actually open some apps on that screen as well. And then we have the Fold 5. It has a case on it right now from Spigen. And this phone is interesting because it opens up into what's kind of a tablet in a sense. And it's a large phone when it's opened up in this form factor, but it gets relatively small when it folds down. So let's talk first about what some of the different features are of these phones, what you might be missing out if you went with one of them versus the other. All of these phones have the same processor inside of them. They essentially have the latest generation processor available in a Samsung phone. And so processor-wise, they're all going to be about the same. However, the S23 Ultra, depending on the amount of storage you get, you might end up with more RAM than these other phones as well. I think even the base model comes with a little bit more RAM. And of course, RAM alongside of a good processor is going to help you get more accomplished on your phone, jumping between apps, multitasking, and all of that stuff. However, I haven't noticed any difference really in how snappy everything feels on any of these phones. I can't tell the difference really at all. Even if I'm jumping between different apps, going and doing some photo editing in something like Adobe Lightroom, and then jumping over into a graphic intense game, the memory management on these devices is really good. And really only a power user, somebody who's really going to be heavily using their phone, might notice a difference. But like I said, in my using these phones for different periods of time and jumping between them, I haven't really noticed much of a difference there. As far as how fast these devices are, none of them are slow. They're all some of the fastest devices that are available on the market right now. When you jump over to these two phones, because yes, there is a difference here between these. You know, if you look at the camera cluster on the back of the S23 Ultra, it's pretty impressive. There's a lot going on back there. And then when you move on over to the Flip, you've got two little cameras there, nothing too exciting going on with those cameras. And then you get three cameras on the back of the Fold, which do look cool, but they're not the same as what you would get on the S23 Ultra. Now, one of the frustrating things to me was that basically the cameras that are on the Flip and the Fold are the same cameras as what came out last year. I like incremental improvements, especially when something is rather expensive, and these two phones have the same camera sensors and everything as they did in their previous generations. The only improvements that are coming to these phones are, of course, with the processor, and yeah, there are some other internals that are improved as far as things go with battery and stuff like that, but camera-wise, you're not getting really any better of a camera than you had last year. And for me, cameras are really important. I'll touch a little bit more on that when we get further down into the video. So you have similar processors, you have differences in memory for processing information, but I don't notice much of a difference there. We've got what looks to be like fantastic resolution on all of these devices. I will say though that the S23 Ultra, if you are a pixel peeper and you like looking at the finer details, it's a much better display on the S23 Ultra. These foldable screens here are lower resolution, although they look really nice and it would be really hard to tell that there's much of a difference here. They're lower resolution. And when you go over to the Fold, which has two large displays, you got the outer display and then you also have an inside display as well. Both of those displays are lower resolution than the S23 Ultra, but they still look fantastic. I mean, I've got the same photo background here. You could look at all the text and everything. You could even try and get up close and you just can't really see a whole lot of a difference on these devices. I would say though, some of the things that do get a little frustrating from times while we're talking about the display is the fold. So these devices here with the crease that goes in the middle where it folds, you can see they're highly reflective displays too. They're catching my light that's off to the side. And so when you're using a device like this outside, you know, you've got the reflection of the sun or the light or whatever, and it hits the crease in the device, which is the most annoying part about the crease. Otherwise, the crease doesn't really bother me. When I'm using this device inside and I don't have like weird lights going on or I'm not outside in the sun, the crease I don't even notice. If I hold this phone straight up here, you can't see a crease until I start to angle the device, and then you can see the crease start to appear only because of the reflection. And then of course, you know, if I start to bend the device, you can see it. But it's hard to see the crease on this display unless you're looking for it. I think right here, if I get right before the angle starts to light up, the crease starts to light up from the reflection, you might be able to see it a little bit up here, but it's hard to see. I will say though, it's a little bit more noticeable on the Flip. The Flip having a line that goes straight across the middle, you can see more distortion in your image, and it might be kind of hard to show you in on the camera here, but because of the line going down the middle, I can see a little bit of distortion in the image. And especially if I'm watching a video or something's moving, like if I'm watching Instagram stories, YouTube shorts, or TikToks or something like that, you can definitely see the crease a lot more on the Flip than you can on the Fold. For some reason, it going down the center like that is not as big of a deal as it going across the center. That's just my experiences, and everybody else may vary, but that's my experience. Of course, on the S23 Ultra, there is no crease at all. It's not a foldable phone. It's a standard style phone that we've been used to for a long time, with just slightly rounded edges, which is pretty much Samsung's kind of signature move. They've gone with less rounded edges now, but I do like the fact that it seems like everything is just kind of pouring off the side, and it's a really nice experience. The only thing I have different on this phone is I have a custom launcher. I'm using Nova Launcher on this phone, which is why the icons are different than what they would appear. I'm using One UI, just the standard Samsung One UI on both of these other phones. Performance is rather similar. That's been my experiences. Performance being rather similar. It comes down to the aesthetics of these different devices. What's nice about the foldable phones is that they do take up less space. When you fold up the Flip, it is small and it can go down into your pocket and it isn't going to stick up. If you typically put your phone in your back pocket, you're worried about the phone popping up out of the top and somebody grabbing it or whatever. This phone, you're not going to have that problem because this phone dips down into your pocket really well. It doesn't take up nearly as much space. So if you're looking for something compact, yes, it does get a bit thick when you fold it. Less thick than last year's model, but it still is a bit thick. It's thicker than most other phones. You know, it's thicker than the S23 Ultra with a case on it. But as far as the space it takes up in the typical ways that we would store this phone, it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. One thing I do find frustrating, of course, the back here has wireless charging. The screen on this side, there's no wireless charging through the screen. But we do have, of course, the camera bumps that stick up. That sometimes makes it easier for me to remember what side to put down, but I'm so used to putting a phone down camera bump side down that I'm constantly setting this phone down upside down. And when I put a case on it, that makes it even worse because now I can't even really tell which side is up, which side is down. And so for me, it's taken some getting used to with the Flip. I'll go put it down on a wireless charger, and then when the screen doesn't come on, I'm like, oh, whoops, it's upside down. It's just sometimes you have to really pay attention and not just mindlessly set it on your wireless charger. But it does have wireless charging. And I do like the fact that this phone is relatively slim. You might notice that there is absolutely no gap here anymore. There used to be a gap with the hinge. There would be a little gap left over, and it would make the phone a bit thicker on this end than on this end. So I really love the fact that it is so sleek and the design is so nice. Everything is really good. I've seen some people, kind of complain about maybe there being a little bit of twist in the phone because of the new hinge design, but this is so minimal, and you're not going to be doing this with your phone. You're not going to be twisting your phone like this. Your phone, when it comes in contact with any sort of twisting, is going to be folded down, and it's not going to happen because it's such a small footprint. It's not going to have those issues. The flip is fantastic for somebody who wants a great phone that has excellent performance. The displays are nice. They're not the best that are out there, but they're very nice. And the cameras are acceptable. The cameras are good for 2023. They're not great, but they're good for 2023. The Flip is a fantastic phone for you. And having this small display here is just great. There's so many different things that you can do with your phone. You can set it up like a little tent, and you can have a slideshow playing right here. Of course, that's going to drain your battery quite a bit. You can also put it in beta mode. When I unlock the phone, I can swipe all the way over and open up something like YouTube and actually play a YouTube video on the small screen, which would be pretty cool. So neat things that you can kind of do here. Might be useful, might not be useful. You can also use maps and stuff like that as well. So the small display is getting more fun and more useful. And so there's some functionality there, some utility there in having that feature. Then we move over to the Fold, which is a bit of a thick device. The narrow display on the front of the device takes some getting used to. I do find myself using the narrow display a lot and kind of liking it, even though I have been asking for a wider display, kind of like the Pixel Fold. Google has their Pixel foldable phone now, and it has like a full width phone on the front. And then when you open it up, it's also like a small tablet. While that sounds great, I found myself liking this more narrow form factor for those instances when I'm laying in bed and doing a little bit of doom scrolling or whatever before bed. Having that narrower phone to hold onto is great. Having a thicker, wider phone to hold onto, it's just so much to hold onto for a long period of time, especially if you're laying down and scrolling on your device. The narrower phone is great. And then, of course, if I want to see something bigger, I just open up to the large display and I have so much more screen real estate. And a lot of apps are actually super cool in this particular mode. So for example, I've got ClickUp here, and I've got a whole section over here with all of my spaces and everything. And then I can have all of my information and everything over here on the right. I don't get that much information when I'm on any other phone. I have to have a tablet or a laptop or something like that to have that much going on. Having the extra screen real estate is really nice. I mean, if I want to go and read a book on the Kindle app, having a larger display like this is great. Having more apps to look at. If you are going to use multitasking on a device like this, having more space is just great. It's awesome to have all of this extra screen real estate when you need it, and then have a narrow display which is simple for holding on to. Now, I do have a case on this phone, and it's from Spigen, and it covers pretty much the entire device, which I like. I'll have a cases video coming out soon for the Fold and for the Flip, so you're going to want to make sure to check those out if you decide to go with one of these phones. And I have links down in the description below to all of these phones should you want to purchase one. You can check out the links below, see pricing and availability, color options, and all of that good stuff on these phones. If I was choosing one phone for myself, what phone do I think I would choose? For me, the number one feature on a phone is the camera. The camera is extremely important to me. I take a lot of pictures and video. I have kids, and I just like using my mobile devices for capturing. The Samsung S23 Ultra has that extreme zoom capability, which is great for capturing things that are far away. And while it's not the best quality photo that you get, having that feature is pretty amazing. And it's hard for me not to want to have my S23 Ultra with me when I'm traveling or when I'm anywhere else. It is my number one phone of choice because of that. And the regular cameras, not just the super zoom camera, but the regular cameras are better quality images. And it seems that the processing and everything is just a bit better on the S23 Ultra. Then you move over to the Flip, which I want small phones with high performance, and the Flip 5 is as close as you can get to that, but we don't have the camera quality that I would expect. I would love a flagship version of the Flip. You know, the Flip is a reasonably priced phone for what it is, but you're lacking cameras, and the cameras are where it falls short. The front-facing camera is okay, and the rear-facing cameras just don't provide a whole lot of performance for what I like to do. So for me, I love everything about the phone, I just don't like the cameras. And so for me, I tend to not lean towards the Flip 5 because I know I'm going to want to take the S23 Ultra with me because it has the cameras. Now with the Fold, it has better cameras. I mean, some of the cameras are relatively similar, but it does have more camera options, and it has one additional camera for more zoom. And so we're getting closer with the Fold. But one of the things that I've said, and I know a lot of other people have said, is for the price, it should really come with the cameras that the S23 Ultra has. But I do know that we'd have to trade off the amount of space that they'd have for a battery in this device to provide those types of cameras. There's some trade-off with this device. You get the screen real estate, which for me is absolutely great. And with an S Pen, I can journal on the Fold. I can do all sorts of stuff. I can edit photos. There's a lot of things that I can do on the Fold that are a bit trickier to do on the other devices because of their smaller screens. But it comes down to the cameras for me, not having the super zoom camera and as good a quality of cameras as the S23 Ultra. If you are like me and you absolutely have to have the best camera, then really the S23 Ultra is the only option for you when it comes to these devices. But if you're wanting a compact phone that has great features and decent cameras, then the Flip is great for you. If you're wanting something that can be compact but then can open up and provide a much larger experience for you, then the Fold is the appropriate phone for you. But if you're looking at the individual little features, you're not really going to notice much of a difference between either of these devices when it comes down to the actual performance. Lastly, the one thing that I did forget to mention is, yes, the S23 Ultra has a built-in S Pen, and so you have the S Pen that pops out of the bottom, which is something that the Fold does not have and the Flip does not support. So the Flip is not going to support an S Pen. It's only going to support just regular basic stylus. The Fold 5 does support an S Pen, and there's a new version of an S Pen this year that's extremely small and narrow and easier to stow away. And in my cases video for the Fold 5, I'll make sure to be mentioning that as well, because I have the Samsung case that has the built-in S Pen holder, which is great because it's just not a massive hump like last year's model. So anyways, I'm getting into the weeds now with this video. I hope that this helped you maybe decide what version of this phone you might want based on the things that are most important to you. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below, and we'll see you back in another video soon. Take care.